One of the least sexy yet most effective things that you can do for the health and success of your romantic relationship is to set goals. Now, the reason I say least sexy is because this is not the oh happens type of energy. This is not the Notebook or another rom-com where it's just serendipity and synchronicity happening left and right. And it's not a fairy tale. This is actual strategy and intention being applied to arguably the most important area of your life, where you set very clear goals, you set very clear success metrics, and you measure your progress. For some reason, for a lot of people, measuring progress and having clear goals is the antithesis of what it means to be in a romantic relationship, where we have this idea that things should just be easy. If we're meant to be, we shouldn't listen narratives about what it means to be in romantic relationship. Now, I'm not saying that you have those ideas. Maybe if you're watching this, you're like, Lee, that sounds like a freaking great idea. I do that, or why wouldn't I do that? Let me tell you why this is effective. When you look at any successful organization, what is it that they do? They have a clear vision and mission. All stakeholders are bought into that vision and mission and are on the same page. There are clear goals. There are clear meetings set to review their progress. And there is consistent open lines of communication shared among the team members of that team. A romantic relationship is no different than an organization. Some of these business organizations are so successful because of the systems and operating procedures that they have in place. So why wouldn't we take those same systems and operating procedures, see what works, and apply those principles to a romantic relationship, which is where we spend most of our time when we're not working? And so to leave things up to chance in a romantic relationship where we're not having regular check-ins about how things are going, if all the stakeholders, you and your partner, are happy, unhappy, satisfied, if needs are being met, if goals are being fulfilled, why wouldn't we do that in a relationship? And there are very fun, playful ways to do it. It doesn't have to feel like a Q1 board meeting where we're talking to the investors. Although if that's fun for you, I highly recommend you bring that into your romantic relationship. But there are some very clear goal setting strategies that I recommend to my clients, because what I find so often in my work with couples specifically as a relationship coach is that clients will come to me week over week with the thing that they're working on that week. And it's like, Lee, well, we had an argument about this thing this week, and here's what's happening, and here's what she said, or here's what he did. And I have to step them back sometimes and say, we can do this forever. You can come to me every week and we can talk about the next hot topic in your relationship. But if that is not tied into a bigger vision or a bigger strategy for the relationship, we can do this forever. And we can make some movement, of course. However, if there is no target in mind, if there is not a specific place that both people in the relationship are going and intend to improve upon as time goes on, then how do you know if you're going left, right, up, down, and if your partner is going the same way? Especially if you have no way to measure that. So I want to make clear some of the very murky parts of romantic relationships that often feel like we don't know our head from our ass, especially when wounding and triggers come up and we don't know who to believe, if we're right, if they're right, what's happening, right? Relationships can feel confusing sometimes. I'll just leave it there. When we have a clear, defined set of goals that both partners are deeply wanting to create, this makes it so much easier for us to say, okay, well, let's get very specific about those goals. So, what I had some of my clients do last night, we're in the final stretch of 2025. I said, tell me what would have you feel successful in your relationship if by the end of this year, but we've got 3 months left in the year, if by the end of this year you achieved those things, what would cause you to feel successful? This alone is a brilliant question. If you're in a relationship right now, I invite you to ask yourself this. By the end of this year, over the next 3 months, if you achieved 1 to 3 very specific things in your relationship that would cause you to feel successful, what would they be? And let me give you a little pro tip here. This is not a goal of you changing something about your partner, because as we know, you have no control over that. So this isn't by the end of the year, my partner will be sleeping with me more, or they won't be getting defensive, or, right? Leave changing their behaviors out of this conversation. The kinds of goals I'm talking about are goals like, okay, by the end of the year, I would love to be an effective communicator where when my triggers get up, I know when my triggers kick up, I know how to emotionally regulate. I know how to identify my needs, boundaries, and desires and clearly communicate them. And I know how to really listen and empathize with the needs, boundaries, and desires of my partner. And when we have conflict, we navigate it with mutual respect, and we are able to create a clear resolution or path forward, as well as repair after rupture has occurred. Now, listen to the specificity of that goal. Doesn't that sound so much more specific and clear than we don't fight anymore or we work things out? So now when we have a very specific goal like that, we can actually measure it. So the first bit here is choosing these goals for yourself, getting that specific and not endeavoring to change your partner's behavior. Choose goals where things are completely within your control. So how you are showing up to the relationship, how you navigate your emotions, how you communicate, how you listen, how you go up and add value to the relationship. Create 1 to 3 of those goals. And okay, so let's actually talk about what makes a good goal. If you come from the world of business, you've probably heard of SMART goals, SMART. The goal should be specific. So you heard my example of a specific goal. It should be measurable. So we should be able to create some sort of metric that helps us measure if we are making progress toward that goal. It should be achievable. So something that stretches us, but is not so far out of reach that we can't create it or make progress on it. It should be relevant. So it needs to be relevant to what we're doing and relevant to the ultimate vision for the relationship. And it needs to be time bound. So by when will you achieve this goal? With my clients, I'm using this small container of the next 3 months. So this is how you can set your goal up. And one of the things that I like to ask clients is, when you have the vision for your relationship, which is what is the ultimate destination for this relationship? What is the vision? How do both of you feel inside the relationship? What are you able to do when this vision has been made manifest that maybe you're not able to do now? Who do you become to bring this vision to life? How does your vision fulfilled impact others? So we always start with a vision, and then we have goals that support that vision. And these goals are SMART goals. And then we have metrics for success that support you making progress on your goals that ultimately fulfill your vision. One of the fun questions that I like to give my clients is, who is the version of you that has already achieved these goals? What do they think or believe? What do they feel? How do they act? So this version of you, let's say you set your 3 goals from now until the end of the year. And they are goals very specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound around communication, around your sex life, and let's say around emotional connection. There is a version of you that has already achieved these goals, and that version of you thinks certain thoughts and believes certain beliefs that maybe the version of you watching this video doesn't currently think or believe. This version of you who has achieved these goals and is on your way to fulfilling this vision feels a certain way, has certain predominant emotions. Once you have your vision in place and once you know what your goals are, it's pretty easy to determine which version of you can actually create that. For comparison, if you want the goal that I just outlined around communication and conflict resolution and repair, this version of you probably thinks communication is really important, probably believes that you are able to communicate well and that you are able to empathize, that your relationship is worth the time that you put into it, that empathy is an important quality. This version of you probably feels hopeful, motivated and determined, devoted. This version of you probably shows up and acts in a way where when conflict occurs, you start looking for a solution rather than digging your heels in and falling back into past patterns like defensiveness or shutdown. And so this version of you is much more likely to achieve the goal around clear, healthy communication of your needs, boundaries, desires, being able to listen to that of your partners, being able to resolve conflict and create repair, then maybe the version of you that thinks, oh, well, what's the use? Nothing's going to change. They don't know how to communicate. They're never going to change. Believes that it's not worth learning how to communicate, feels hopeless, angry, frustrated, resentful, and shows up and acts in a way where you stay more attached to your patterns of defensiveness, shutdown, anger, blame, finger pointing, collapsing your boundaries. If that's the behavior, then how can that version of you ever achieve the goal of clear, healthy, thriving communication and the vision, the ultimate vision of a healthy, thriving relationship where you feel deeply emotionally connected, sex is off the charts, you feel spiritually connected, and you are growing alongside each other? So there's two versions of you, one that achieves the goal and fulfills the vision, and one that does not, that stays stuck and maybe even makes things worse or destroys the relationship. And there are two versions of your partner as well. And so when we work from the deepest levels down to the most pragmatic, practical, and tactical levels, then we can really see how to create the kind of relationship we are truly desiring. Now, as far as measuring all of this, I like to work with my clients to measure things daily or weekly. So you have some sort of daily check-in with yourself and or with each other, and some sort of weekly check-in, and that weekly check-in is ideally together. And on the day-to-day, you might check in with what worked well that we want to keep doing, what didn't work so well that we want to change or that we would do differently tomorrow, and where are we making progress? Where do we need support? Those 4 questions alone can be enough for a daily check-in for you to, at the very least, qualitatively track your progress. Now, you can quantitatively track progress on things like communication by saying, okay, how many conflicts did we get into this week? And we're looking for that number to decrease week over week. How long did the conflict or tension state last? We're looking for that number to decrease week over week. How long did we stay in connection for? Oh, wow, we went 10 days without any conflict when last month we could barely go 5 days. That's success. That is progress toward the goal and toward the bigger vision. So you get to choose what your success metrics are. Some of them are going to be quantitative, some are going to be qualitative, where it's more along the lines of, how do we feel? How enriched do we feel by the quality of our communication this week, by the quality of our emotional or sexual connection? And that's more of a subjective based scale that you and your partner decide together. So these are the things that I see help couples be so successful. And again, like I said in the beginning of this video, it's not always the sexiest thing to devise some of these metrics. And I'm sure there are some of you that are watching and is like, this is so sexy because it's so clear. And I finally have a path forward to understand if we're tracking toward our vision. Oh shit, we didn't even have a vision. We should create a vision, or we should create goals. Here's how we measure it. This is a practice that I use in my relationship that my husband and I come back to over and over and over again. And even though it requires a little more legwork in the beginning, this, hands down, why not use the practices that make some of the most successful organizations what they are? Why not take those principles and apply them to the relationship and watch your relationship be and feel just as successful? So, my invitation to you today is set your vision and do it as soon as possible. We are in the third quarter of the year, and so it's time to have a vision. Set 1 to 3 super specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound goals. 1 to 3. Don't overwhelm yourself. And then decide what those success metrics are to track progress on those goals. And then just do a daily or a weekly check-in with your partner and track progress. And then celebrate all the wins. Celebrate the wins like it is your job and you are getting paid for it, because that is what is going to help you continue on the path to a successful, healthy, thriving relationship. If you found this video relevant, supportive, helpful, I would love to read your comments below, click like or subscribe, and share this video out for anyone you think it would support.